Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this important video conversation with our youth as they pass the mic and share their compelling coming of age stories. Stories that are consistent with the California Healthy Youth Act. What makes this Pass the Mic documentary so crucial is its use of video as an informal teaching tool, and a tool that reaches our young people where they spend the most time and are most comfortable. And that is within screen cultures. I'm talking about the internet and other online, visually intimate spaces. But in this Pass the Mic safe space that is peer controlled, our youth share their honest narratives, which young people, young audiences can identify with, and where parents and teachers can learn a lot from. We believe that you, like us, will be so proud of our young people as they learn the value of speaking up and passing the mic.
Hola a todos, les interpreto al español el mensaje que nuestra comisionada Anna Everett nos acaba de compartir. Gracias por acompañarnos en esta importante conversación sobre el documental Pass the Mic, que significa Pasa el micrófono, y el cual resalta a jóvenes compartiendo sus historias sobre la etapa de la adolescencia y temas relacionados a la Ley para una Juventud Saludable de California, CHAYA por sus siglas en inglés. Lo que hace que este documental Pass the Mic sea tan importante es como el uso del video como una herramienta educativa le permite a la juventud aprender a través de la pantalla, un lugar en el cual pues les es cómodo pasar tiempo aprendiendo en línea y en entornos íntimos. En este espacio seguro y controlado, jóvenes de nuestra comunidad comparten libremente sus historias honestas con las que la audiencia juvenil se identifica y de las cuales madres, padres, guardianes y el personal educativo de escuelas y organizaciones comunitarias pueden aprender y utilizar para comenzar un diálogo sobre estos temas importantes, la adolescencia, el espectro de género y la orientación sexual. Creemos que ustedes, como la Comisión de Mujeres del Condado de Santa Bárbara, sentirán un gran orgullo de ver a un grupo de jóvenes valientes practicando el valor de hablar, de alzar la voz y compartir el micrófono, seguido por supuesto por un panel de personas expertas en el cuidado de la salud, para concientizar a familias y al personal educativo de nuestras escuelas. Now we are ready to watch Pass the Mic, a film featuring local youth which will be followed by a panel discussion with healthcare experts to inform parents, caregivers, and teachers.
Pass the Mic is a safe, brave space for teens to talk about sex and listen to people with different identities and perspectives. An open casting call went out to high schools, and a group of students came together to share their insights about how to be safe, healthy, and proud. All I did was ask a few questions and pass the mic. Think about this question. What do you wish someone would have told you about gender identity and queer expression?
I wish somebody would have told me that I didn't have to conform to gender roles.
That masculinity doesn't have to be toxic.
That I don't have to be constantly objectified and taken.
I wish someone told me that trans men exist as well.
I wish that somebody told me that you can be trans but not necessarily have genitals or certain physical attributes that make you who you are.
I wish someone would have told me that you don't have to do everything feminine to be a girl.
I wish someone would have told me that as a woman you don't always have to feel the need to please everyone.
I wish somebody told me that it's okay to not know who you are just yet.
I wish somebody told me that they are proud of their gender identity.
What do you wish someone would have told you about being non-binary, transgender, or LGBTQ+?
We grow up in a society where we're taught that there's male and female, and that's something that, as a teenager, I'm discovering that we're all in this struggle together to fight for abolishing that, really.
I wish someone would have told me that labels don't necessarily matter, and if you can't find the one that feels perfectly comfortable for the way that you feel about your gender, that it's okay and you can just exist and be happy.
I'm very proud of being female, and I understand that there's so much that comes with, identifying myself as female. As, I will probably have to grow up fighting for my right as an equal to men, or being respected, or just being able to wear whatever I want to wear, being expressive without being sexualized. And I think that it's beautiful to see that there are people on all spectrums of gender that are so supportive of being a female and being a strong, empowered female.
I wish somebody told me about, you don't have to make sense of other people's gender identity whenever they don't conform to either, because I think as humans we are always trying to look for ways to box people in, even if they tell you that they're not in a box.
So the definition of trans is somebody who identifies with the gender that they weren't assigned at birth. So pretty much the doctor, you pop out of your parent and they say it's a boy or it's a girl. They don't typically say it's healthy at first. They literally they gender the baby first. And so whatever the doctor says is your gender assigned at birth, and whatever you know inside your head is your actual gender. If it's different, then you're trans. If it's the same, then you're cis.
For being trans, especially trans mask, I wish someone would have been like, you don't have to be super boyish or rugged or stereotypically boy, and can discover what masculinity and manhood and boyhood means to you.
Something I learned from my trans identity is that what's different from me and cis people is that I got to walk the world being seen as two different genders. So I've experienced sexism before when I was younger, and now I experience the privilege of being male. People listen to me more than they did before, feel a lot more confident, both because I'm actually living as my true gender identity, but also because people want to hear me, and people actually respect me now that they see me as male.
You can be religious, and if your primary religion or your original religion rejected you, go out and find your own God and find your own spirituality and hold that God close to your heart.
I identify having 3 genders, one of them being a girl, a guy, and then something of a mix. It gets really confusing because my mother always wanted me to be a very girly girl, a really feminine person. And I was never really that kind of person. I admire guys being able to wear their clothing how it fitted them, the suit thing, oh man, I wish I had a suit. I want one so bad. And then there were days where it's just where I hated my name, my female name, my birth given name, because I had no idea why I hated it. But then I found out it was because it didn't fit me on that day. I wasn't Kaylee that day, I was somebody else. There's always not a lot of understanding in the Latinx community, and we don't even have a word for a gay person. We do have one, but it's very derogatory. It's an insult, really.
Sometimes it's confusing, and that's okay, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, and you don't have to say at someone you're confused. Be I know I'm confused, I just left math class. That's just part of growing up, and you're gonna be okay. The kids are all right. You'll be fine, promise.
What stereotypes do others have about your community, gender, or sexual orientation?
So I think a big stereotype within the LGBT community and with straight people and cis people too is that all non-binary people have to be perfectly androgynous and look a certain way.
Okay, a stereotype that I think I personally deal with a lot is that me being lesbian isn't validated because I don't look like a lesbian, because of I dress, feminine, or I don't dress androgynous.
A lot of stereotypes that surround, I'm pan, a lot of stereotypes that surround us is we're Tumblr kids, or we're confused, or we're trying to be bi people but more eccentric or something.
Being a feminine woman, I want to be a mechanical engineer, and so I'm building things a lot and I'm designing things, and for some reason people think I can't pick things up or lift things that are heavy, and I love building things, and I feel I'm very strong, and I feel that's not reflected with my outward appearance.
Me as a straight female, I feel that sometimes I just get those comments like, oh, you can't do what guys do or anything like that. And sometimes it's not just because people are trying to be mean, it's just because they lack knowledge.
How can you be an ally? How do you speak up and stay strong for yourself and others?
I had a friend and he came out as trans a couple of years ago. I just wanted him to know that he could confide in me if he needed anything.
I never realized that I could be called they them until earlier, like middle school, and that was even weird for me because at first obviously the confusion that comes with it, but you're only one person, it's not multiple people, and I had that confusion too. But then I realized it doesn't matter. She, her, he, him does not apply to me, and they them is a neutral term that I can use that won't specifically put me on either side. And I had a friend who didn't understand that and who told me that she was not going to use they them and was going to still continue to refer to me as she, her. And I stayed quiet, and I wish I would have told her, well, you're hurting me.
Using the wrong pronouns can be extremely triggering because of all the trauma and all of just the struggle of having to come out. The anxiety of being called something that you feel like you're escaping from is extremely hard. I'd say a good ally is someone who corrects a person when they misgender their friend. If you mess up, if you say she, all you need to say is, sorry, I mean they, or sorry, I mean he, and then move on. And we don't need you saying how hard it is for you because it's a million times harder for us.
If you're challenged with a stereotype, challenge it. Say something and challenge it, because obviously whatever it is, it's coming from ignorance.
I still have biases, I still have stereotypes in my head that I'm trying to get rid of and unlearn. So if you ever feel like you're judging someone, remember that is what people taught you to think. Whatever comes after that is what you truly believe. It is difficult to try to get rid of all this stigma that's just been poured onto you, and you had no choice but to listen and follow and believe in it. And now you're realizing that might not be true. It's going to take a while for you to understand all these new identities and sexualities.
If you could go back in time to your own first year of high school, what would you tell your younger self?
Whatever it is that you're going through is normal, and even if other people try to invalidate that, like we said, you are valid.
No matter how you identify, don't be afraid to be yourself and you be you.
If somebody ever comes out to you, don't ask them if they're sure, because they're probably not sure. And so we're in high school, you're going to change classes, teachers, you're going to change friends probably, you're going to lose friendships, you're going to gain some. It's a space where you're just going to change a lot.
I think the last thing I would like to say is that you're going through high school and it's hard. It's so awkward, and you're going to be okay. You're going to make it. A lot of people are going to change, whether it's their gender, sexuality, hair, bodies. Everyone is going through a thing, and the most powerful thing you can do is just stick with it. It's going to be messy, it's going to be weird, but it's going to get better.
3 experts passed the mic in conversation with parents and teachers. Why is it important for teens to get sex ed at this age?
So, I think it's really critical for our youth to have access, to have the opportunity to acquire knowledge, skills, and know where to get the resources so they can be healthy and safe. So specifically, kids need to have that opportunity to learn how to protect their sexual and reproductive health, especially from HIV, other sexually transmitted infections, and of course the unintended pregnancy. As a public health director, I always worry about our rates of STIs and why they are continually on the increase. And I think that with education, with skills, with knowledge and allies, we as a community can make headways into that. I think also, this is a crazy world that we live in with a lot of misinformation, a lot of drama, a lot of just craziness and social media. So I think that it's really critical that our skills that our youth learned the skills to develop healthy attitudes concerning their growth, their development, their body image, their gender, their sexual orientation, how to navigate that relationship that's not ideal. And eventually, if they consider marriage and having a family, what the skill set might look like to promote healthy environment. So ultimately, I think it's important for our children to get the comprehensive sex ed at this age because they do need the resources in order to thrive.
I have patients who are teenagers, but all of my patients were once a teenager. And so, I mean, I think everything that Vaughn said is critically important, and I couldn't agree more. Actually, I couldn't say it any better. But I think the tiny piece I would add is that there's something very unique about sexual health relative to more global general health. We really invest in our kids trusting their doctor when they're 5 years old to look in their ears. And we talk about all the good, healthy things that we do and establishing relationships and trust with our healthcare providers about general health from such early years. But when our kids become adolescents, become teenagers, and suddenly there's a unique part of their health that hasn't been relevant thus far, perhaps, we also have to invest in training them how to interact with the healthcare system. Unfortunately, to your point, I do sadly see people in their 20s, 30s, even older, who really weren't well equipped to enter, their sexual lives. And unfortunately, I see those patients in my HIV clinic, in Vaughn's health department, in the STD clinics, and I think those were often missed opportunities.
This made me really think about what the students were talking about in the film. And they even said, it's confusing, and we're confused, and we're going to be confused. And so I think that hits on adolescent development and identity development and what's going on with them at this time. And that the more information they have, we know that the abstinence only does not work. Research tells us that. So the comprehensive sex education where they have the knowledge, they can get the information, and they can make the educated choices and learn how to communicate with partners, with friends, with family, with parents.
How can parents and teachers take primary responsibility for talking about sex and instilling values and beliefs in our teens?
And we know that parents are main number one, most of the time, socializers of passing on that info to their children. So parents are important. A lot of times parents aren't informed as well. And even, I started my dissertation work. My PhD was on mother-daughter communication around health and sex and HIV/AIDS, because I didn't know how to talk to my daughters, who were 5 years old at the time. And I wanted to learn. And so my research taught me, sitting in workshops, taught me how to talk to my daughters, because I did not have the tools. I had gone a lot of years of schooling, but I couldn't have these basic conversations about their bodies and how to love their bodies and how to feel good about themselves. So I push and I advocate for parent education workshops, and how do we teach parents and give parents information on sexual health and identity and communication on how we talk to our kids. I say this a lot. My daughters are now in college, so they ended up leaving and going to college. I made it. I'm very proud. But I taught them, and in our house, they spoke back to us a lot. They talked back. They towed the line of being disrespectful. And so all my cousins, my mom, everyone was like, how could you let them talk back? And we grew up where you don't speak. So you be quiet, you listen, you don't say anything, you don't disrespect. And so oftentimes our opinions weren't heard, our voices weren't heard, our fears were not heard. And so I did the opposite with my girls. and they told us how they felt every day, all night. And it was because I wanted them to use their voice when they were in a room full of all men, and they had to be the one to speak up and say something. And so that was the hardest thing as a parent to do, is to let go and let them practice using their voice. So by the time they got out there, they would know how to do that.
I think probably the most important part of the conversation for me is acknowledging the era in which we're raising our kids. You know, for as long as there have been people, there have been parents struggling with when it's time to talk about sex and talk about, you know, some of these topics. I mean, this is really, you know, not a new conflict. But what is very new and very hard is that our generation of kids, this generation of teenagers, they have unlimited access to information that no children have ever had. And so I think going back to Rex's point, the grounding in the relationship with the parent, I think, has to just be strengthened, perhaps trained, celebrated, supported. But I think one of the key pieces that I think the video, the opportunity, I think that the video really helps, is that not every child has a home situation where there are going to be parents that that are abled, even with training, support, education. And so I think yes, we absolutely need to invest in parents and communication to counter this deluge of information that's coming from the internet. But I think we also need to make sure that there are safety nets in place for when there, you know, the home education, the home support may not be quite as much as we'd hope.
In my interaction with a lot of parents, it feels like sometimes it's about them. And I would love to remind parents that it's really not about you. It's about you learning to be an ally to your child. I hear among my peers making a lot of assumptions about what they know about sex or sexual orientation, and just making huge assumptions. So I would say that in a healthy parent-child or parent communication, it's not about you, and don't make assumptions, and be really broad and non-judgmental. And what an awesome opportunity to be a great ally to your child or to a teen in general.
Yeah, excellent.
What resources are available in our community and online?
I can speak about the resources in the Public Health Department on our website under Disease Control and Health Education. You'll find a plethora of data, of reports, and of really helpful information that you can access to have that conversation with your adult ally, your parent, or with your child or a teen person. The other thing is we have clinics where sometimes you don't have that access to home life where you can have those conversations. You don't have that safe space where you're really wanting to explore certain things, wanting to know more about certain conditions. To that, our clinics are on a sliding scale. We take anyone, so come on in, we'll get you the help you need. And the other thing is we value our partnership with Planned Parenthood of Santa Barbara. They are amazing in terms of providing resources, providing information, and providing services.
Great. First and foremost, when a teenager is trying to access healthcare, sexual health, I really encourage people to try to go back to their medical home. And so, again, in a perfect world, the same person that was looking in your ear when you were 5 years old for that ear infection is also the person who can answer a lot of your questions. And so I think encouraging people to return to their pediatricians whenever possible is a great, great first step. For parents to remember, I think almost every pediatrician in our community encourages this, but making sure that our teenagers have an opportunity to connect with their pediatrician without the parents present, and that there's a space for that and a time for that in a visit. So again, I think reconnecting to the medical home and just giving a quick kudos to the hardworking pediatricians who really do the bulk of the adolescent health care in our community. I just wanted to start with that. In addition to the public health department and the huge range of pediatric offices, we have some really phenomenal, what I would call safety net opportunities for accessing care. A couple in particular I should definitely mention would be the Pacific Pride Foundation, who really are a champion of HIV testing and prevention services. The single place in our community where you can go and have an anonymous HIV test at no cost to you, same day, just a phenomenal community resource, and rich collaborations with the health department. And then the second would be Planned Parenthood, who really, again, do the lion's share of a lot of STD prevention and care for men and women in our community. And so I think that's my summary of the opportunities for accessing care.
I think our libraries are also a source. I was talking with my grad student colleague earlier, Jenny, about what a resource our libraries are. We're here today too. I think to acknowledge that as a safe space and a community space for parents and for students. And also our UCSB library, we have resources, the GSA, and definitely resources on our campus for students. These videos have moved me tremendously. One, because I've never seen anything like this where I've heard the voices of the kids, of their voices, the student voices. And so to think about what teachers can learn from hearing them and how peers can learn from each other and how they support each other, and the knowledge there that you see, like, it's not something you can get in a textbook. And so how do we meet kids where they are, and that unconditional love and support, when they're out there, they'll come back to this, and they need that. And so but this as a tool for educators is, I think, critical, and other students will see themselves in these videos. So.
I just applaud the teens who were so courageous and took the time and shared their heart so that we as a community can grow from this. I'm definitely will be showing this in my department just so that we can be culturally humble and supportive as adult allies.